Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're listening or watching outside the Beltway Radio. My name is Alan, and I am your host. Today, we're going to talk a little bit more about Russia and Ukraine, um, and the American foreign policy that is just ridiculous at this point. Um, so, so far, Putin and Russia have now annexed Ukraine. Shots have been fired. I guess at least one person has died. And us, what we've done so far, um, in response to him actually taking over part of a country, is to sanction 11 or 9, I believe, or 11 individuals that are uh, billionaires that come over here and like to play and have mansions in Miami. And so we're restricting their passports so they can't come here and enjoy their spoils in America. Well, whoopee, right? That's unbelievable. I mean, we have sent jet fighters over to Poland doing sorties, or not sorties, but exercises. But we're almost at the point where we need to put boots on the ground. Doing quote unquote exercises also. Right now, they have 20,000 troops on the border of Ukraine. Russia does. Now, any logical person would say they're about to invade or attack or whatnot. Because right now, if you look at the map of Russia and Ukraine, where the Crimea Peninsula is, excuse me, where the Crimea Peninsula is, it's on the southern border of Ukraine. It's actually separated still from Russia, except on a peninsula that jets out kind of like Gibraltar, where Spain is at. It jets out so they can cross that little thing. I don't know if there's a bridge there or not, but it pretty much opens up to a big, huge bay, but it's the ocean still. It's like bigger than the San Francisco Bay. But as far as the landlocked part of it, pretty much Crimea is separated. So, Russia technically has a piece of land like America has with Alaska that's separated from their actual land area, I guess, what you want to call it. Anyhow, so in Russia's interest, they're probably going to take at least the southern part that connects Crimea with Ukraine, or with Russia from Ukraine, and then why not take the rest of Ukraine, right? I mean, if you hear some of the propaganda that Putin is saying to his own people on the Russian media, it's pretty crazy. And you could tell by his mannerisms and the way he's talking that he's not going to stop at the Crimea Peninsula. He's going to do whatever, he can at this point until he gets pushback. And let me tell you something. Words are not pushback. Not at all. We need to step up our involvement, in the sense that I think we need to be sending arms to Ukraine, supporting their government, or their military, excuse me, to defend themselves. That way, it's a proxy war for us. We're not necessarily in the war, but it's kind of like what we did with the Mujahideen in Afghanistan when Russia was trying to take over Afghanistan. We were actually supplying the Mujahideen with, rocket-propelled grenades and the such, and they were just knocking down helicopters left and right, eventually breaking Russia. They had to pull out. And that was the beginning of the end of the Soviet Union, as we know it. Now they're trying to rebuild it back. Trying to spread the Iron Curtain back over Eastern Europe. And what happens is the only people or the only country that can stop them is us in reality, because everybody knows the Europeans are passive. I guess that's the right word to say. The politically correct word to say, passive. And they depend on us. To be honest with you, they chose that role to let the big brother be the big brother, and the big brother will protect us. But when we have a policy like we have now, or a foreign policy like we have now, to where we're minimizing ourselves in the world, or trying to be equal with these European countries or our allies all across the world, then we have issues, because guess what? There's no more big brother. And when you don't have a big brother, or if you don't have the stick, you can't use the carrot, if you know what I'm trying to say. You cannot use the carrot if you don't have the stick. So, as far as leverage goes, we have no leverage because we don't have the stick. We don't have a carrot because we don't have the stick. I mean, sanctioning 11 billionaires or oligarchs or whatever they call them, that's ridiculous. We're going to meet up with the G7, no longer the G8. We're excluding Russia out of the club. And they're supposedly going to be talking about what more we can do. I'm sick of talk, to be honest with you. I'm a hawk, I got to admit, you know. Peace through strength. That's reality. That's the way this world works. When you're dealing with, whether or not you're dealing with jihadists in Afghanistan or Pakistan, or Muslim fanatics, or states like Russia, full-blown countries, do you know? So, I don't know. This generation. See, I'm late 30s, but the generation below me. See, I actually remember the Cold War, at least when I was real young, and I remember the Berlin Wall falling. I remember the Berlin Wall fell. The Afghan war with Russia ceased to exist, and President Reagan was telling Gorbachev to tear down that wall, and he was going to summit meetings with Gorbachev and leaving pissed off. Reagan would go into those meetings and demand. And when Gorbachev wouldn't give him what he want, he'd say, "Screw you," and leave. That's the way he dealt with Gorbachev. And if you ever heard any interviews with Gorbachev after even Reagan passed away, Gorbachev did nothing but respect that man. Even though they had their political differences, obviously they're representing two different countries, two different interests. Countries that had been butting heads for 30 years prior, or actually 40 years prior. But Gorbachev was smart. Gorbachev was a great leader. He understood the direction his country was going into. You know, the path to democracy. And then, you know, you got Boris Yeltsin came into power. And then Putin, who has changed his title numerous times so he can become reelected or just stay in power. And now he's essentially an autocrat. There will never be another leader of Russia until he passes away. and he's in search of nothing but power. Um, and status, I would say. You could just tell by the press releases that he has of himself and the way he portrays himself as a manly man. I don't know how tall he is, but I know he's not very tall. I know he's pretty short. When he was standing next to Obama, he's like a foot shorter, and then when he would stand next to George W. Bush, he was 4 or 5 inches shorter. He's not a very big guy. But he walks around with a puffed out chest, and he has an attitude. And his attitude is, I'm going to do what I want until you stop me. And that's where we're at. Are we going to stop him, or are we going to let him chip away at Eastern Europe? You know, the Georgians, the Latvians, they're all shaking in their boots right now because it's not just Ukraine. Because if he has the cojones to go to Ukraine and just flat out march in and annex part of Ukraine, what's going to stop him from getting the little Baltic states like Georgia and Latvia? You know? There's not going to be much to stop him. Peace through strength. That's what we have to realize. And this generation has to come to grips with possibly another Cold War. Now, Cold War is scary. When I was real young, I remember having to do drills where we would have to get under our desks. And when I was that age, I didn't really understand what it was. I knew just it's what we had to do. But looking back, now that you think about it, it's in case a nuclear missile was coming our way, and we were getting under our desks. Is that hilarious or what? Unbelievable. But that was the reality back then. And I know it's a lot Hollywood, but if any of you guys out there have a chance to watch The Americans on FX, the FX channel, it's a really good show. And it just kind of reflects the atmosphere that was back then. A lot of paranoia, you know. The KGB, CIA kind of spy stuff, how it was constantly going on. How the countries were trying to get one up on each other, no matter, just constantly. And it was a battle, and it was just those two countries, us and Russia. We were the superpowers. Eventually, we knocked them off when we outspent them in Star Wars, a program that never actually came to fruition, as far as I know. But they had to start spending some kind of money on something that would be at least comparable to a Star Wars program, and they couldn't do it. And I think that was a brilliant move as far as Reagan goes, because he knew they couldn't do it either. And to this day, I kind of think that it was a farce. You know, just stay public with it. Act like we're building this extreme missile defense system to essentially diffuse their nuclear arsenal. And then we have ours. And then they don't have a defense system. So we would be on the one up. Can you imagine what they were thinking back then? Anyways, pretty much what we need to do is step up our game. No more rhetoric, no more talk. We need a little action. Putin won't respect anything but nothing but action. I mean, this is my personal opinion, but we've seen what he has done so far. and it's a little scary. All right, guys, that's my piece for this evening. I am sorry that I haven't been on as much as I want to be. Just have some time constraints. But go check out our website, OutsideTheBeltwayRadio.com. Our Facebook page, Facebook.com/OutsideTheBeltwayRadio, or tweet. You could tweet me at Outside the Beltway Radio, or send an email, alion@Outside the Beltway Radio. If you have any suggestions on topics, or you have any comments on what I'm saying, or disagreements, I'd love to hear from all of you guys. Have a great evening. Enjoy your weekend. And I'm so glad March Madness is here, guys. Take care.